Just a quick video of the bug, just to show how it's interacting with some of the settings. We're going to options here. So we're on the Marianas map and we've got the field of view default set to 140 in this view. And you can see these big patches of trees that are not rendered. What's interesting is if you go into the forest visibility setting here and you take this down, it actually re-renders them. And what you can see is that at high settings, if we look further down the coast, you'll be able to see this better. At high settings, everything's rendered out into the distance. We're on extreme view distance. And then as we reduce the setting, you can see patches here where things are not rendered. Obviously, loads of stuff here. As we reduce the view, initially, it doesn't seem to do that much to what's being rendered in the distance, although you can just about see if you look just here. You can see as we take the setting down, stuff is the clipping of the distant trees is happening, and they're being rendered to less distance, which is what this slider should do. But also what's happening is it's filling in, it's backfilling some of these close regions, and as you keep bringing the slider down, you can see you can get settings where the shadows are rendered but the objects are not, and then as you bring it down, it starts to affect everything. The other thing to note is it's called forest visibility, but it's also affecting the buildings and pretty much all the objects bar some. So there's kind of some buildings that appear to be immune. There's some parked cars, static things, some bushes and stuff that don't seem to be affected by this. But then as you bring it in gradually, and then obviously when you get right down here, it's bringing the forest visibility right down to here. So this kind of scaling, it's almost like there's a range band in which it'll work, and if you have the far bit set too far away, the near bit is removed. So this is Marianas map 140 default field of view setting. Now we're going to change. So here we are over RF Akrotiri in Cyprus, and we're going to show the same thing on the on this map. Now to bring this effect out on this map, we have to set the field of view setting higher. So we've set it to, or the default field of view setting to 160 here. Interestingly, this also brings out some odd aliasing effects. You can see kind of happening on the runways, but separate issue. Now there's much less of this bug to see in this on this map. The same thing does happen, and you can pretty much see it if you just slide this slider down a bit. You can see if you look here, this kind of sparse trees, and you can see some kind of flickering. That's where the shadows may be being rendered and not the objects. And as we bring the slider down a little bit, those trees are filled in, and you can see more trees appearing in the foreground. Obviously, just as trees in the distance are disappearing, correctly disappearing because we're reducing the visibility of the forests down. As we bring the visibility of the forest down, you can see it affecting trees from far to close. Now, you see this in much fewer places on this map. You still see some odd object things, like if we look over here at the far distance for the trees, but also it's a grove of trees just here. As we bring the slider down, the ones in the far distance disappear, but that close grove of trees, just this tree line just here, also changes, and things in between don't. So it looks like there's objects in kind of different categories here that are being affected differently by the same slider. And for those of you that are interested, if you change the forest detail factor, this does not make any difference. You still get the same effect. This doesn't change where stuff's rendered, it just changes how pretty your trees look. So yeah, as I say, it's much subtler on this map. It doesn't seem to be affecting as many objects. You can see if you look at this grey building here, there's no trees rendered in front of it, and then as we bring the slider down, they pop in. So much more subtle, and you have to set the view, the default field of view, much higher to get this effect on the on this map. Now we're back here on Guam with the field of view set back to 140, and we're going to see how distance and direction affects this, because what you'll see is as you look around, Depending on where the clipping plane is, you can see stuff being affected as the line of sight changes, and particularly if you look away from something, sometimes you can get stuff fully rendered in, and when you look at it, it'll disappear. And this is a fairly reproducible effect. Like, there we go, get within line of sight, it disappears, and look away, I might get that to render, and there you go, you can see things near the edge are popping in. But it seems to pop in blocks. If we zoom the view in or out, we will also change that. So if we zoom in, you'll get the detailed trees rendered. We zoom out, we get the zone of no trees, and then we zoom out further, and we get the low detailed trees rendered. And so when you're fully zoomed out, it looks like it doesn't happen. Now, what this does obviously is, of course, it interacts with distance. So the same thing happens if we move closer to an area. As you get close, sometimes the trees will pop in. Let's zoom out a little bit. There we go, there they popped in. So they're there, and we're going to fly away, and some more render. So you can sometimes get strange behaviors at different zoom levels depending upon the distance you are from the object. So there we go, we can see stuff disappearing. Move closer, and it may, there we go, we've got close enough that it's disappeared, but only if we're not looking directly at some location. And I'm guessing the place you have to be looking directly at is the center of that rendered object. So you can see these, this is happening in blocks of trees, and so I'm assuming what's happening is that as we align our line of sight with the center of that object, DCS is measuring the distance from us to the center of the object, and it's measuring it only parallel to the line of sight, because that's how DCS measures visual distances. It doesn't measure straight line. And when it does that, if that object is within a certain distance, it doesn't render. And that, I suspect, the reason that it's making me think that is that you can get close enough that the object will render sometimes, and it will change with field of view. So it looks to me like there's like a range band where the low level of detail trees are unrendered, but the high level of detail trees are not yet rendered. So there we go. So detailed trees, no trees, undetailed trees. And this is just to give you an idea of why this setting is important for those of us on widescreen. This is the NTTR map with this field of view setting set down to the default field of view reduced to 100, and you can see that because we're on very widescreen, things are not rendered even though they are potentially quite close. So if you look straight in the middle distance, you will see the trees appearing around the golf course on the edge of Vegas. Now again, there's some buildings that look like they're not that affected by this. You can see right in the far distance, going up on the far side of Vegas, there's buildings rendered all the way out onto the hillside. Right in the middle, but close, we're actually seeing things, clip out. And we're only at 6,000 feet here, but you can see from 6,000 feet with a normal field of view, essentially, if we imagine looking over the nose of an aircraft, no buildings that are close enough, we won't see anything, and you can see stuff popping in really, really close, in a really odd way. And that's just a function of the way the default field of view interacts with the actual horizontal field of view of the monitor, and messes up the rendering.